we'd certainly like her to be here, and I hope she is on her way. And we'll carry on, we'll modify our agenda to the extent that we have to, so that we can do something in her absence. But yeah, her intent was to be here in person today, but then to try to arrange to Zoom in the future. So, one piece of information that I'd like to distribute to the committee that I did not email to you is relative to a piece of communication that Rich Rotella gave to me, and I just want to make sure that everybody has a copy of it. It's he'd had a conversation with somebody that was pertinent to one of the project areas that we were considering. And you've seen this, but there's another copy.
I'll walk one over to Jana.
We just started a minute ago, Jana, and thank you for traveling here. We were just explaining that if you arrange with Rich how it is that you can zoom in, we can do that in the future. And there's also a telephone which provides an audio mechanism to participate if the Zoom doesn't work or there's a problem there. But we're happy to see you tonight. I've just started by passing out a piece of information that I did not email out to you. This was a contact that Rich had made with Mr. Scott Rowley of the Good Table Foundation in Castine. I called their phone number, I left a message, and I have not heard anything from them. But I haven't tried any harder than that to get a hold of them. But I wanted the committee members to know what contact Rich had with the Good Table. The reason for it being of possible interest to the committee is one of our areas of interest had to do with local food accessibility, and those sorts of things. And apparently the Good Table Foundation is growing hydroponic food in a enclosed trailer system that with LED lights and so forth, and is interested in providing food to fulfill that same goal. But whether or not we could work with them at this moment, I don't know.
I've had the opportunity to see some of their work, and they actually set up a little mini version at Loaves and Fishes Food Pantry of that system. It's pretty impressive. Yeah, so it's exciting to see how that unfolds with discussion.
Cool.
We do have to decide what to do for E14 because we had originally agreed to take it off.
Right.
And then Suzanne wanted to put it back on. So it's currently not on the application. And everything that kind of went with it, all the descriptions and stuff that were written for it are now gone as well.
That's true.
Plus we're talking about potentially only doing 3 of them. So we'd have to cut, if we added it and wanted to only do 3, we'd have to cut 2 others.
Right. And that, I think, is going to be the types of things that we will want to talk about tonight. But let me quickly ask committee members whether the proposed agenda meets with your approval. Do you see any changes that you'd like to make, or additions, subtractions, alterations?
Not that I can think of.
A lot there.
So one of the things that we're going to do very, very soon here, if hearing no objections to the proposed agenda, is we're going to review the minutes, and then we're going to ask Jana to provide us some information. But One of the things that we do not have at this meeting that we have had in previous meetings is a note taker. One of the service providers before did a very good job of taking extensive notes. I'm wondering if there's anyone that would like to volunteer to take some notes this evening. The required part of the notes are the date, the time, who's here, and what decisions are made. Anything more than that can be helpful, but that's sort of the minimum of what's needed in note taking. Is there anyone that would like to be taking tonight's notes specifically?
I already started.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much.
We all thank you.
I figured I think I can type fast enough, but I cannot be a Debbie. That's
Remember, it's also recorded, so you can
Right.
go back for
Yeah, that's
feedback.
true.
That's what I was thinking as I was discerning whether I could do it.
So for the minutes, I did send out the minutes of our last meeting, which was held on September 3rd. And if you've had a chance to look at those minutes.
Yes, I did.
Does anyone have any comment on the minutes? Any corrections, any alterations needed for the minutes?
Just what was the date last one?
It was September 3rd.
I saw nothing there. That's me. I think they need to be changed.
Okay. Hearing no objection, the minutes from September 3rd are approved. And that brings us then to Jana Richards, our service provider, and I'm hoping that you can do a couple of things for us, Jana. One is to give us any updated information about the GoPIF program. Another is to describe your own role, what you expect to do, what you expect not to do, and then field a few questions that committee members may have.
Sure.
And
So I guess one really big update is that GoPIF, the Governor's Office of Policy Innovation and Future, is actually moved into the main Office of Community Affairs now. So there's this new office in the state called the Main Office of Community Affairs. It has the Community Resilience Partnership Program within it, but it also has a lot of offices that aid in resiliency, so things like floodplain managers, code enforcement, fire suppression type work, so emergency management and preparedness. There a lot of the permitting through DEP. So you can go check out there's a website that you can check out and you can see what offices actually moved into the main Office of Community Affairs. There's also a new, I don't know, I keep saying office because it is an office itself, but there's all these other little offices underneath it. But there's a new office that will focus on resiliency. It's headed by a gentleman named Brian Ambrett, and you may have heard that because he actually used to be in charge of the Community Resilience Partnership Program prior to Ashley Krulik taking his place. So he's been with that department for a very long time.
could you spell his last name?
Ambrett is Ambrette.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the first legislation that went through in the session that is current, it was LD1, and that was to actually establish this Office of Resiliency that he is the head of. There is a main resilient infrastructure plan that was approved in May that he was one of the co-authors of, and there was a committee put together. We had representation from Stonington, luckily, on that committee. So Linda Nelson sat on the committee. She's the Economic Development Director for Stonington. So there was a lot of, Hancock County knowledge, I think, put into the planning process, which was good for us. I would definitely suggest checking out the plan, particularly at the end. There's these great tables that talk about the strategies and actions that are coming out of that plan and the timetable. So there's several actions and strategies that are going to be implemented in what they say is 0 to 2 years, which means like soon. And out of those, there are several other funding sources. So yes, we have the Community Resilience Partnership as a potential funding source through the community action grants. But there's also what's called the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund, which can help fund transportation-related projects. So if you have like a bridge or a stream crossing that should be maybe upsized, then this funding source could be an opportunity.
It's just like transportation infrastructure rather than ridership infrastructure.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Just wanted to clarify.
Yes, yes. With that, the projects are the maximum is quite significant. So last year's round was up to $4 million. So it can include things like your engineering and your design work and the construction work. So that will be coming out later in 2026. But just I sort of work backwards a lot of knowing when these opportunities are going to be coming available so that hopefully we can, like the towns can help prepare themselves to get to the point where the request for applications or proposals becomes available. So that's just one, but if you look in those tables in that plan, it will show you a lot of what they're thinking of doing in the next 2 years.
Where can we find that information?
So what is your Wi-Fi password?
Oh.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'll write it down so that
Okay.
way all of America
Yeah,
USA
so-
doesn't have it.
Honestly, if you just Google Maine
Good point.
Good idea, yeah.
Maine Infrastructure Resiliency Plan, you will find it. But let me see if I can give you a direct link here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Did I do good?
I think so. It's thinking about it.
I can forward it to everyone's email now. Is this it?
That's it.
Okay,
Yep.
I'll forward
Thank
it
you so
to
much.
the lister right now.
So, yeah, there's a lot happening in that office, and that is almost like a guide for the next almost 10 years, I think it is. So, so that's what's going on at the state. I did sit in on a call today where we were told that where the community action grants used to be 2 rounds per year. So there was a fall and a spring or a winter and a summer. There's only going to be 1 round in the near future. So the application that Alan helped prepare and draft for you, that will be submitted in May. Is that what you all know?
How does that affect with lining up with the,
Island Institute.
right, because we chose to delay so that it would line up.
Right. So they'll be submitted in May. You probably won't hear about being awarded until July. And I believe that the Island Fellows begin in August, September. I can speak to the Island Institute to see when they start taking applications. I'm not sure if Alan provided that information to you all or not. I know you would have the funding, like if you are awarded, you would have the funding available to start somebody in August, September. The question is if they need to get an application from you all earlier and then something happens with, if you do not get the funding, what then happens? So that's a conversation that I can have with Island Institute. Luckily, Hancock County Planning Commission had an Island Fellow that just ended their fellowship in August. So we have a good connection with the person that's in charge of that program at Island Institute, and we can ask that question.
Yeah, that would be very helpful if you could do that and keep me in the loop, I can keep the committee in the loop.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can even copy you in on the email. Yeah. Okay. So I think those are the updates from GoPIF. I don't think I have, or MOCA, whatever you want to call it now. I don't think I have anything else right now at this time. My role, so I'm not a service provider, and there is a pretty good distinction between what a service provider and their role is and what my role is as regional resilience coordinator. So service providers work with communities to get them enrolled in the partnership and then write a grant application based on whatever the priorities and the actions are that are determined by the community. The regional resilience coordinator, the job is lots of different hats, but one of the things is that I go out to communities and I encourage them to join the partnership if I think it's a good fit. And then I can, if they are willing and wanting to do that, then I can say, okay, here are some service providers that can help you in getting enrolled, or does the town feel confident enough to move forward with the enrollment process themselves, in which case I can support, but I don't actually do the actual tasks that it takes to enroll. So that's kind of like the beginning stages of where I can fit into this. Then the service provider really takes over and helps the community enroll. The service provider works with a community for about a year time. Then I can be back in service. And so like the best case scenario is that I'm kept informed of what's going on during the enrollment process. So I have an idea of what the priorities are of a community, so that when the service provider has enrolled you, you've got your first round of grants, then it's like, okay, you're focusing on the projects that you've put into that grant application, but the work doesn't end after that grant is completed. You're gonna need to kind of move things along. So one of my biggest roles, and probably where my time is most spent, is ongoing from the planning stages to implementation. So I can identify, once I know what the priorities are of a community, I can identify funding sources that might be available. I can help write those funding applications. In terms of grant writing and grant applications, I've supported at like the very bare minimum, where I've been asked to just review it. I've been asked to just provide a letter of support. I've been asked to write a portion of, when it comes to something like engineering and design work, I've been asked to write that portion. And then I've also written the entire application. So it can run from the bare minimum all the way to the full extent. I would say that my role is to work with every community in Hancock County that is enrolled in the Community Resilience Partnership. And at this point in time, there is 30 out of 37.
Wow.
So
Does that include Bucksport?
that
now
includes
we're enrolled?
Bucksport. Yep. And that actually includes the 4 towns that we're enrolling currently. So my plate is usually fairly full when it comes to writing grant applications, but I will say that I can usually get some support on that from my other staff members. When it comes to like if there's a map that needs to be made, we have a GIS person that is able to help assist with that. Again, I think my specialty, just because of my background, is more on the infrastructure, resilient infrastructure side of things. That can be like working waterfront, transportation, those types of things. I have written lots of applications now at this point for energy transition projects, but we do have other people that I work with that have also had experience with those because they've worked a lot with the island communities, and there's a lot of energy transition projects happening there. So that probably takes up the majority of my time is identifying these, but there's also like resources and tools and educational opportunities and things like that that are out there. And because I'm part of this statewide network of individuals that are working on this, I find out about all of these types of opportunities that could be available to Bucksport. So I will use a very tangible example right now is, we're talking about energy coaching and a Climate to Thrive. Have you heard of a Climate to Thrive? Okay.
Yes, I have.
It's kind of a bummer because yesterday they offered this and I wish I had seen it sooner, but I have a good relationship with them. I'm actually meeting with them tomorrow, and they have this energy coaching program where they speak to local communities who want to set these up and go through a series of questions of how they can tailor it to your community. So I would say, if they're willing to do this with Bucksport, it would be worth it, especially since you could probably go through this exercise, and then if you do get an Island Fellow, translate a lot of the work that's done to them and say, hey, we went through this process and this is what we came out with. And then they would be more likely to hit the ground running when they come into that position. So again, and that came to me through just a newsletter that I subscribe to. And there's tons of these opportunities. I mean, there's individuals doing things like developing proposals for grants and how to write grant writing skills and things like that. So
What's the name of the group that helps with launching the energy coaching programs?
a Climate to Thrive.
Joanna Blackstone.
Yeah.
She's the executive director, and I believe that this program is through Wilson Hames. She's
I'm meeting with them too. So
perfect.
not
Yes.
related to this, but
It's great. So that's another thing. So these, another one of my tasks, if you will, is to kind of just be aware of what others are doing in Hancock County. So Alan, through Blue Hill Peninsula Tomorrow, I participate in those to understand what's going on there. Understood what he was working on through the service provider. Island Institute is another organization I work with quite frequently. A Climate to Thrive. Even the MDI League of Towns, because they're a group of community members that meet together and make decisions. And so for me, if there's opportunity for multiple town work that can happen, that's always a bonus because it helps more than just one community. It can help an entire region or micro region. I've even started getting into school districts and talking to them because there's a lot of green infrastructure projects happening in schools. So MDI Regional School System is launching a Green Schools initiative. I know Brooklyn has done a lot of work in the Blue Hill Peninsula. So there's a lot of cool things happening in Hancock County, and so I stay aware of everything that's going on, and then if it's appropriate to bring up, here, I can say, oh, well, this community is doing that, so maybe we could have them come meet with you or Zoom in or whatever.
A question about
Yeah.
Climate to Thrive.
Sure.
Is there helpfulness to towns trying to launch energy coaching programs on a fee basis, or is that a free program?
So this workshop was free, and so I think what I would have to just check with them is, I know you already hosted it yesterday. I didn't see it, but Bucksport's really interested. Is there another time in the near future you will be holding this?
They held a similar one, I'm going to say, a month and a half ago that I know Ellen went to. It was a webinar, and I know that it was recorded,
Yeah.
and we were expecting to get, and I haven't communicated with them, expecting to get the recording from that.
Okay.
If that,
Let me check if it's on
I don't
their
know if there's
website.
anything additional to what they were providing yesterday, whether that was what I'll call a repeat of that program or whether it was new material. But just to let you know where we were a month and a half ago, roughly.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know, I'm speaking with them tomorrow, so I can just let them know that Bucksport is interested in this and just see what they may be willing to offer.
Good.
So, yeah.
And if you can email me, that's great.
Absolutely. I would say what I don't, so like those are all the things I do. What I don't typically do, like I will stay informed of climate resilience committees. So like Goldsboro always sends me their agenda, the minutes. I will look at the agenda if there's things on there that are related to potential projects that I can help move forward, then I will attend. And sometimes I just sit there and listen. And then other times their chairman will call on me and say, hey, Jana, do you have anything else to add to this? So usually getting an agenda ahead of time helps me understand whether, I should be there, I should be present. If there's things you're talking about and you're kind of just in the working stages of talking through something, sometimes it's not really even helpful for me to be there. So, but I can always check in too. Like I can get the agenda, say, hey, I don't really see much on here that I might be able to offer to. Do you want me to attend? I would say Sorrento is another one where we've gone back and forth multiple times. One of the biggest differences with Sorrento is they're one of very few towns that actually doesn't have any staff at all. So it's all volunteer driven. Same with Waltham, and we've worked with both towns. So they're through my work plan, if a community has absolutely no capacity and they're also what they identify as a high social vulnerability community, then it's okay for me to show up and do a little bit more. But they do set agendas, they do take their own minutes, and again, I'm there to just ensure that things are moving forward. What else? I mean, pretty much I do. If you ever have any questions for the state, I'm a good person to channel those through because I can take those questions and send them to the individuals who I think might have the answer. Just trying to think of anything else.
Do committee members have questions for Jana?
The only question is, what don't you do? I mean,
Yeah.
incredible.
Thank you. I don't. So I kind of went through this today with Ashley Krulik in a meeting with her because it came up whether or not I should write the grant reports for communities, and she sided on the side of probably not. I can review them, but I probably shouldn't be the one writing them. So, if a town has staff or their committees seem to be doing fairly well, I tend to not do the work of the town. But I can review things if there's questions and things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Very, very good. Thank you for bringing all of that information. And,
Sure.
I hope you've captured some of it, and I've captured
Yes.
some of it, and we clearly want to stay in close communication.
Absolutely.
And with Rich is the person that you'll want to arrange the details of how to work the technology to be able to zoom in if that's your preference.
Great. And I think it's only the preference just because as many are, we're on a fixed budget, so traveling.
Need
With
to
you.
qualify.
Yeah,
for
no,
this.
I mean,
with
that's
you.
always been the thing
Totally.
is the travel budgets are
A thing.
shrinking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
things are not getting any better. So we do the best we can to be efficient when we can be. So
And I think all of us have enough familiarity to be able to understand the etiquette of Zooming as opposed to being in person, and we appreciate your involvement either way.
sure, great, thank you.
So committee members, at their last meeting, we discussed at some length a couple of things. We discussed the energy coaching, and we discussed the community gardens, and the thought was that those were useful discussions, but that there were other topics that we had originally outlined as of interest, and it would be worth discussing those topics as well. I don't want to force us to discuss those other topics now, but that's at least one of the things that we could do is to spend a little bit of time to get a sense of what the likelihood is of being able to do projects that are in those other areas. how easy it would be for us to find the subject matter experts necessary to carry it off, and see what other barriers might be in our way, to be aware of them. So how do committee members feel about carrying on our discussion in some of the areas that we have not yet discussed in detail?
Yeah.
Sound okay? So the habitat inventory and the vulnerability assessment, as far as I know, are the primary ones that we have not discussed. Now, the energy coaching was a specific one, and communication about energy in a more general sense was another one. And to me, those are close enough together that we may not have to break them out and having a discussion about it. So I'm suggesting that we talk a little bit about the habitat inventory and the vulnerability assessment pieces that we were interested in, to see what our interest is and how we would proceed if we go down those roads.
I feel like, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I feel like those two were good ones on the application, not just because we all expressed interest in it at one time or another, but because they're things that are hired out. And so when we're looking at what is our availability to achieve these items, these two don't have a whole lot on our plate as a committee, because they involve hiring out other people.
When, for F3, the vulnerability assessment, were we, I just want to be clear on the intent of that, because we did have a presentation related to sort of the 50-year storm surge and its impacts on water rise during storms and its impact on sort of that piece, the flood zones. Were we talking, was this more about a vulnerability assessment for residents writ large? Do you have a sense? Because I think if it's just about sort of vulnerability assessment based on storm damage, I feel like some of that work has been done for the other plan. So I was just curious.
It was my understanding it was more about a vulnerable population,
Okay, that's what I wanted to articulate.
particularly because
So
of our,
vulnerable people rather than,
Yeah, well, there are actually two vulnerability elements in the spreadsheet from GoPIF, and one was focused on the infrastructure and one was focused on the people.
okay. I feel like the infrastructure one has kind of
yeah,
started and happened. We had that really great presentation where the gentleman spoke about the potential for flood based on sort of those 100-year storms that are coming a couple times a year and its impact on properties and infrastructure here. So I think that work is sort of, I wouldn't see us getting a benefit from doing that again for infrastructure.
And therefore, if we're looking at the vulnerable populations in town, and I think that we might have in mind the idea that that's the portion of the townspeople that are vulnerable in part because of their economic status of not being able to afford measures that would take them out of that vulnerability some. And do we have any ideas on how those things could be assessed? That is to say, how would we identify, or what would the goal of an assessment be that is looking at vulnerable people in town?
I mean, I'm torn on this one because when we had the person visit from Healthy Acadia, it seems like we have sort of an ecosystem of nonprofits that are already assessing various pockets of vulnerability in Bucksport, and it's I don't know if we need to sort of reinvent the wheel rather than making good partnerships and collaborations with Healthy Communities Coalition, the Homeless Shelter Program, General Assistance staff, Healthy Acadia, and others. If those assessments are already living in other buckets, I'm just because I worked in that sector for a long time, and I feel like there's a pretty good sense of that from the nonprofits that are working with, particularly people in poverty. If we're talking people living with disabilities and things like that, there may be some gaps there I'm not aware of. But I don't really know if a vulnerability assessment. I don't know. I guess I just don't know how we would. Yeah. Please.
Yes,
Do you want to come up to the table and be a part of the meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a couple thoughts, and obviously I'm new to the conversation, but if there was already some sort of a infrastructure vulnerability assessment that was completed, two things with that. One is the funds through the Community Action Grant can be used to help advance. So like if there was something that was flagged in that as an issue, and then they came back and said, this is what you could do to like either elevate this area, or if it's public infrastructure. So if it's a road that continuously is flooding or something like that, you can use the funding to engineer or design a project that would then lift the road out of the floodplain potentially. Or so if there were results from that, I'd be interested in looking at it to say, oh, there's a project or two or maybe 7 in here that could be viable for a community action grant. And the way, when it comes to infrastructure, what I usually say is community action grant is a good chunk of money to be able to do preliminary engineering and design. It's like 70, like if you went with a $50,000 piece of that. And it doesn't have to be in this grant application, I'm just saying in the future. Then you have things like the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund that can take that design and construct it for up to $4 million. So when people say, oh, our town council will never approve this because it's not going to go anywhere, it's just going to sit on a shelf or whatever, there are ways of moving those projects forward. You just have to kind of think, again, backwards. It's like you already had this planning done, you know the areas that are your vulnerable areas. They hopefully are making recommendations in the vulnerability assessment as to the actions that can be taken to make them less vulnerable. What needs to happen next? So is it an engineering or design? Is it some sort of, what is it? And can the community action grant more or less pay for that so that you can then take it to the next level with a potential different grant opportunity? So the other part of the infrastructure vulnerability assessment that kind of combines it with what you're saying with these vulnerable populations, I think what we always think about is, okay, this road could potentially be flooded out and cut off for however many days. Let's say 3 days, because we need to go out and we need to clean it up. And what is in that area that could sustain somebody for 3 to 5 days, right? So you're thinking of it from like a disaster response situation. If you're in a food desert in this area of town and there's no way out to get anywhere else, that's a problem. Let's try to think about how we could help these individuals. So it's not specifically thinking about each individual person of like, oh, that's Joe's house and he doesn't have a car, or that's whoever's house, because those things can change all the time, right?
That's helpful, thank you.
So you can sort of, like, I think a plan that could take the work that individuals are doing, marry it almost with this vulnerable infrastructure plan, and then you would have like a nice sort of thought process as to what can we do to improve the situation of these individuals in these neighborhoods or these areas of town if a disaster hits. And it doesn't just have to be a flood, it can be lots of different things.
Fire, for example.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking
Yeah.
while you were
That's
speaking.
actually helpful context, because I'm so trained to think vulnerability assessments are about what
People with
groups,
disabilities.
challenges for particular groups,
Yes.
rather than location of
Right,
particular groups.
right.
That's more helpful.
And that's the key, is that those things can change all the time, but it doesn't matter whether you have somebody there that's on oxygen or not.
Mhm.
If something happens, because anything can happen, a tree falls on that person's house, right? Can the fire department get in there? Can the EMS get in there? And like, what are the alternatives to be able to like help? So these are like, and that's where it can also be integrated into your emergency operations plan. And, you know, that's when you can bring your fire department potentially
Yeah.
and police department into conversations and start to have like a big community discussion about it.
That would be great in this town, to know what the emergency plan is. But in this town, it's not allowed, which has been as Rich knows, a thorn in my side for a long time.
Right, right.
So that, just to start there would be a vast improvement, and then you could build on that. But, you know, so many times we think of these issues as storm-related.
Mm-hmm.
They're not necessarily storm-related issues. You know, you mentioned about roads washing out. Well, up until today, I've been sweating forest fires in my yard and things like that. And even today, after today, I'm still going to worry about it. But there's so many other things that can happen out there. As you said, it could be local, even a regional town.
Mhm.
You know, it's tough. So the reason, and I agree with what Emily said originally, I was in strong supporter of the F sequence because for the reasons that I felt the impact for the most people in the town would come out of that those F7s or F3s. And this reinforces everything I believe about the wisdom of that, using those, making that one of the projects. But we're still going to have to pry some of the information we have out of the local administration here, because it makes it difficult. I don't know where they're at with these things. Just on the base unit, the base emergency plan, it's not public knowledge at this time. That's a starting point. So when you can piggyback this on top of the work from there, that would really enhance whatever they're trying to do, I think.
I think it also helps with, I know I brought this up before, but I do find it very concerning that the Director of Emergency Management,
Andrew Sankey?
yes, that he doesn't feel there are vulnerable populations, because everybody's vulnerable.
Mhm.
And for me, I feel like having something to present that shows, well, this is vulnerability, this is what it looks like, could be helpful in future emergency planning.
Even a silly situation like I have where I live, I have an incredible amount of invasive species, plants that are coming in now as a result of whatever it's a result of. And I can go up there right now and probably pick 10 invasive species that weren't there 30 years ago. So that climate resiliency, the climate's affecting us in so many different ways. And that's presenting a problem on top of itself with dead trees, the emerald ash borer situation that's here now, about to hit. So all this kind of stuff is out there that I think the F series of proposals really dealt with the town. And I think I've mentioned that before, the best bang for the buck. But what you said was an interesting take on it as well, where, you know, we may not have the staff, we may not have the volunteers to pull off some of these other ones. That's another reason that we might want to look at that F7 or F3, whatever it was. I've got a F3. I think that's a good reason to look at that.
I think Mr. Sankey was more thinking sort of in the big picture context of that nobody is immune to the things that will happen in climate change. So when you're talking about, say, a massive fire out back of Bucksport, all households, if they were sort of trapped from road access to somewhere else, I think that's what he was meaning, sort of a global, a sort of sky view vulnerability, that everybody's vulnerable to this. I think that's how I took it. But,
You also want to think about people that are mobility challenged. I have cerebral palsy myself, and so I've got one foot shorter than the other. So imagine me trying to run from a forest fire, trying to get away from it. So thought I'd bring that up.
Other comments on vulnerability assessment ideas? Any specific ideas on subject matter expertise or?
Now that I have a much better context, thank you. You can tell where I used to work. I went straight to the people. I think public safety for sure. It would be
Yes.
really helpful to have. And I also think Mr. Sankey's input too
Yes,
is part of that, but that was sort of the build up to that. But I don't know enough to know how to do a vulnerability assessment and who would be involved in that. I don't know if there's any experience to follow. Do you? I don't know.
I think there was another community that had done this, and I don't remember which one, but that could help point us in the direction of, well, who did the assessment and how do we go about doing that?
I'm looking in what Alan had prepared, I guess it was page 12, the budget. He had listed here vulnerability assessment of climate risk, the not to exceed figure of 14,500. And I don't know what the next word is, but
Blue
it says
Sky
Blue Sky
Planning.
Planning
Yeah.
Solutions
Yes.
is conducting for 4 towns.
Ah, that must be what you're talking about, Emily.
Yeah,
Um,
I didn't realize it was 4 of them.
but I have not heard of Blue Sky Planning Solutions before. I think it's a social, I think
I'll look 'em up.
it's
Look it up.
Liz Hertz.
I will.
If I'm not mistaken, and she's been doing social vulnerability assessment for them. So it's more of the people and not the infrastructure that she's been working with and on.
Mindful of the time.
Blue Sky Planning Partners.
Let's quickly move to the habitat inventory matter. This was prompted by the Emerald Ash Borer problem, but we understand from GOPIF that to deal with the Emerald Ash Borer, that's too narrow relative to what the projects, eligible projects are, and so an eligible project would be a more complete habitat inventory project. And do we have commentary on that topic?
Well, if we wanted to keep it, we'd definitely have to identify other areas to explore.
And again, the subject matter expertise that we would be hiring to move in that direction. Do we have an identification?
Well, Emily had some early discussions, and what did the arborists generally say? That it was a much bigger. Can you recall that? It was over a year ago now. No.
I guess I'm not quite sure what you're asking about it.
Ralph was wondering sort of who would do a habitat.
Oh, gotcha. Well, so yeah, reached out to a lot of different people about it, and most people never got back. And then one decided it wasn't, that we didn't have enough details, and the project was not clear enough to him. And then Fox Forestry actually gave a quote. And well, okay, I shouldn't call it a quote.
An estimate.
An estimate,
Yeah.
yes. Because, without maps and all of that stuff, he's not quite sure how much time it would take. But it was less than what was listed here as an estimate. So financially, with our current breakdown, there would be room to have more assessments. But yeah, it was really just Fox Forestry that responded and seemed willing to do this. Got no arborists to be interested. It was just foresters.
We have information now on soil types. We have information on July 2016, Chris, was, oh yeah, flood zone mapping is also available. The last one was July 2016. I'm just wondering, you know, I would love to see this, but I'm having a hard time justifying it. It's beyond that. We have a lot of that information, and I'm trying to understand what my expectations would be as a result of doing this. What would I see when I see a report on natural resources? We know what our bedrocks are. We know pretty much all of that information. So my question would be, what? And I initially supported this, but I'm just thinking now, do we have all this information, and how would we gather the information we already have to do what? What would we do with it? You know, I've groused about invasive species. That's one that stands out for me. But what do you do as a result, you know, with so many of these things? So I'm not sure that that I would understand why we would spend money on a lot of the information we already have. Sound like you were the last one. We've already got so many of these things up in place. I'm not sure that would help. I can't believe I'm saying this, but when I look at it.
Well, I think there is a reason why these two topics were two topics that we didn't discuss first, and that is because of the larger range of questions around how we would pursue them. Yes?
Blue Sky seems to have a fairly easy interface to sort of request a consultation, and I'm sort of seeing some of their work.
I was going to suggest,
Seems
so
very plug and play, but I'm not sure.
I'm not supposed to recommend consultants because it's like, but sometimes there's not a lot of people that do the work you're looking for that works in this area. So I do feel okay if everyone's okay with me suggesting someone for the natural resource inventory. And I would say, to your point, Tracy, like setting up a meeting with these individuals, saying, you know, that we're interested in this, but we want to know how it's going to help Bucksport, and can you provide us with examples of, you know, how this may help us with our work pertaining to either like resiliency or disaster mitigation or whatever it may be. And so FB Environmental is a firm that does work up this way. They're doing work right now with the towns of Surrey and Goldsboro. So they are already up here. Oh, and Bar Harbor, they're doing an inventory of Northeast Creek, which is like their that big waterway that comes out and goes into Frenchman Bay. I'm on their website right now, and you can see here it says Ecological Services, and then it says Natural Resource Inventories New England, and I guess they've done them for every single one of Maine Coast Heritage Trust's locations throughout Maine. So they work with, it says, municipalities and nonprofits across New England, documenting land use, habitat, wetlands, watercourses, invasive species through fieldwork, desktop analysis, and GIS mapping.
What was their name again?
FB, and then it's E, but in the E is for environmental, so they're called FB Environmental. Sorry if that's confusing.
Thank you.
If you could write that down on a
I'll
piece of
send you the
paper.
link
Yeah.
to email, Stephen. Do you know how to, if I send you links, do you know how to open those?
Oh, yeah, I sure
I'll
do,
send you
yeah.
the link right
Okay,
now.
cool. Yeah, thank you.
So FB
And I'll send it to the
Environmental,
whole
I
group.
know two of their the people that work for them. One's a hydrologist, and the other, I think they're both actually hydrologists. I think having a meeting with Maggie, who's one of them, and saying, you know, we're interested in exploring this further. How would this help us? Again, like if you're going to go after a community action grant, the focus has to be climate resiliency or like disaster mitigation. So an example would be like if you knew all the areas that are potentially prone to the ash borer, and you know that it could leave dead vegetation over time, that would be more susceptible to wildfire, right? So it's like kind of, where are these areas located throughout Bucksport, and like what are the risks that they pose on us as people that live here, and then what can we do to try to remediate that, if anything, in the near future?
Yeah, it does. A lot of this is already, I think,
You
already
already
been
have it.
available.
Okay.
I know Great Pond has a lot of that stuff available that they've done.
Okay.
And there are other programs, you know, the state has a, whether it's Bedrock, whether it's, you know, we did one recently, I think, for was the Silver Lake region, I think. We had one out there or something in the past few years. And I'm not saying this is a bad idea, but I'm just trying to understand what's available.
Sure.
But thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to turn our attention to two things. One is thinking ahead where it sounds as though a proposal to GoPIF is, or what the newer agency is not likely to happen in January, but is more likely to happen in May. But there's some preparatory work that's also necessary earlier on. Although that in some respects seems like quite a distance away, it looks to me as though there's a significant amount of work that we need to do to refine our ideas for making that proposal. And so the question is, what are our next steps? What's the information that we want to pull together between now and our next meeting, and when should our next meeting be? How frequently would the committee like to continue to meet in doing the preparatory work for early next spring?
I think we're very back and forth, so monthly would probably be a good idea.
I agree.
We're talking about potentially reducing to 3 and analyzing each one of them. Do we really want to do this one?
I agree.
We gotta figure that out.
So, assuming that we have a meeting in approximately a month, and in a moment we'll come to actually talking about when that might be, what tasks do we want to try to accomplish between now and then in terms of pulling together some information? We've mentioned the infrastructure vulnerability studies that either have been done or are in process.
I forwarded it to Jen already.
Thank you.
Yep. This committee and that committee were going on at the same time. So I just have to sit on both. We have a recording of that meeting and the actual plan. I can send the plan out to you to send out to the whole committee.
Good.
Yeah, again, it was focused on the downtown and specifically the waterfront walkway.
Right. What other tasks do we know of that we want to try to accomplish between now and our next meeting?
I'd like to, I think Emily mentioned this, it'd be nice to see what other towns have done with this. How can we find out what other towns have dealt with these two specifics, if not all? I can't imagine us doing all, we got 5 now, we've got to cut it down to 3. But at least these last 2 we talked about today, I'd like to see examples, if there's possible, of finished applications or whatever. And there must be links to these towns and or the state program itself that would give us ability to look and see what other folks have done.
Where is this, where are we gonna get that information? Does that, can we see what the studies look like that have been done in the past through GoPIF? Is that something that is available?
Yeah, so specifically though, you're looking for like a social vulnerability analysis that's been done through GoPIF's funding.
That would be great.
And then
Any kind of
natural-
information like that for me is terrific. The more the merrier when it comes to this kind of stuff.
So the group knows, I've sent 2 emails. One was the link to FB Environmental that has no
Okay.
content. It's just came to your email.
Okay, thank you.
And there'll be one more coming that is Blue Sky Consulting. No, I'll make sure I've got the correct organization. And they're the ones that are working with the towns on the vulnerability assessment. They'll just be in your inboxes
Okay.
for when we get further in the
Thank you.
discussion.
I think we each have to decide what do we want to keep and what do we not.
I agree.
Like a more finalized, like what each of us personally feels we should, and
You're
we
right.
kind of did that in the past, and that's how we arrived at
That's
these.
a 5, yeah.
Right, so if we're looking for less, we've got to do that again
You're right.
and figure out, okay, where do we have the most crossover?
That way we wouldn't
That's
be
a good
wasting
idea.
time
It's a
on
really good
two that
idea.
are gonna
Because we're
throw
kind
away.
of going and,
So come with your top 3 out of the top
Right.
5 to the next meeting, and preferably, it'd be helpful to have like a 1-sentence rationale from each of our choices, so we can have a kickoff for the discussion.
So again, coming in really late to this process, has there been any community workshops or public forums where, was there any projects that kind of,
Yes.
Okay.
It is a very long story, but it was
Okay.
a warming shelter, and we found
oh,
an
the
end of
generator thing,
contract.
I've heard of this, okay, yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, so do you really wanna go there?
No. But that was it, that was the
well,
top one?
there was, because it was cooling center,
Yeah.
warming center,
Mhm.
and shade areas came up.
Okay.
But the top one that got traction out of that, do you remember? We have the minutes. It was
Okay,
really early on.
okay,
It was tough, Jana, because the open houses happened really late in the process.
okay,
Like so much so that we were 7 months into this. We had an extension of 6 months
okay,
because then we did the open houses and the committee was focused primarily in one direction,
Yeah.
and it kind of had to.
I only ask because sometimes that helps with decision making, but in this case, not so much, I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't wanna make you a permanent member of this.
I mean, it was brought up because I had a concern submitting a grant application
Sure.
that didn't connect to that meeting.
Sure.
But we moved forward
Yes.
in the interest of getting something on the books for the town. But yeah,
It does show that the feedback we got was a desire to help vulnerable populations.
Sure.
that was loud and clear. Exactly.
And with
Yeah.
those types of
Yeah.
planning, like disaster response and preparedness type planning. So, yeah. Okay.
There's maybe 10 or 15 people. It's not very well attended.
And that's not atypical.
Yeah.
I was
Raise
with
taxes and
Ellsworth.
you'll get a full room.
I was with Ellsworth when we went through the process, and we had 3 people at
Yeah,
ours, and
It's hard.
that's
People are
yeah.
busy. And,
Yeah.
Okay, I know that we're running a little over time. The next meeting date, I know that lots of people are, what's nice about this committee is we have nice active people that are involved in lots of things, but that makes scheduling a little difficult. Apparently, I had offered to set this meeting by an email process, which I did not follow. I thought we had the date. I'm gonna suggest, since we're running late, that we do set the next meeting by an email process. And I'll aim for mid-November, if, early to mid-November maybe. Does that sound about right to folks?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
And we'll have it, choosing dates and times, to be, to try to accommodate as many of us as possible, hopefully all of us.
So,
the 12th is the conflict for multiple of us.
Is that the
12th of
annual
November.
meeting?
Yeah,
Excuse me, what's that meeting?
BBHCC
Oh.
annual meeting.
so as long as you're here, we get into the building, is that correct?
As long as I'm here, you get into the building.
So it doesn't have to be a council night,
I prefer if it wasn't a council
So would
night.
I.
because
So-
the cemetery committee, you have to go by the agenda.
I didn't really want to say this, but we don't all have equal say in how the schedule's gonna go, but Rich is higher on the.
Absolutely, which gets us through the door. Well,
So I'm gonna check with Rich.
Well, I'll acquiesce to anyone's preference. I'll just do what I can when I can.
If you want to keep it on Wednesdays, 5th, 12th, and 19th, all work well for me.
the 12th doesn't work for Emily.
Perfect, so the 5th or the 19th work well too.
And 19th works for me,
Me as
where are
well.
we? Hold on. I mean, we're in November, are we looking at?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
It's the only day that has nothing in it in November. Do you
Let's
have to
ruin
fill that day?
Let's ruin it.
Are you kidding me?
Thank you.
I might wanna watch some bad TV or something.
All right.
Okay, I can do the 19th, sorry to
We're
keep.
filling the hole for you. You're welcome.
Thank you, my friend. I can do that.
While we're sitting here, is there anyone that cannot do the 19th?
I can do it.
Oh, you said you could.
Well, that's October, Chris. What do I have? I have something, but I guess I'm all right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
We'll still do this finalized schedule by email, but I'm glad to know that the 19th looks favorable.
Mhm.
I'm sorry that Suzanne is not here. I did not hear from her, so I don't know what her issue might be, but I'll communicate with her.
I think typically Wednesdays around this time had worked for her. Typically, she's just said it was Mondays.
I
That,
don't remember.
or no, as long as it's after she closes,
Right.
she's good. So the 6 o'clock works typically for her.
Okay, and so tentatively the 19th, 6 to 7, but we'll find that later. Quickly, a meeting evaluation. I like to do this only because it is actually helpful in the conduct of the meetings to know what worked well and what hasn't worked well. I apologize for going over time here, but we've actually had a lot of discussion. Yes, Chris?
I thought the meeting went very well. I thought you managed it very well. Going over at the time didn't really bother me.
It's 7 minutes.
But I would also like, as a member of the committee, like to thank Jana. I've never been so impressed as tonight with your presentation and your discussions. It was terrific. I just was overwhelmed with the amount of information that you brought forth, and I really thank you for being here. And I know the committee thanks you as well. So.
I appreciate that, thank you.
I appreciate having clear goals set for the next meeting at this
Yes.
meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the homework to bring your top 5, and I appreciate that. It helps me feel like we're getting somewhere
Good,
if we move, at least advance a little bit every meeting.
wonderful.
Also, I'd like to thank Rich for what he's doing.
Yeah.
And you, Mr. Chairman, for all the materials you're putting up. It really,
Yeah.
it's a lot of work. And the minutes, good luck.
Yeah, we'll see how they are.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It went good?
Good luck.
Well, I've done minutes.
You'll be able to
We-
tell where the
we-
brain fog kicked in.
I know, right?
It's just the most god awful word.
We do rock, scissors, paper at work.
If you need any clarification on any
yeah.
acronyms, cause
Yeah,
there's
I
a
got
lot
the
of
last
them.
name.
Yeah.
I got the last name Ambrit.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the first name?
Oh,
Brian.
Brian.
I don't even know if I spelled Ambrit
You could just
right.
say Mister, it's fine.
I took some notes too, that way I can do some work tomorrow on some of this stuff.
Thanks for reminding me.
Any last quick comments?